Hello and welcome to the Boostara Podcast, where we meet leaders in business and education and uncover truths and insights from their amazing experience. If you are interested in learning more about how we can help you leverage AI to boost growth, cut costs, and get business insights, please type growth into the comments below and I'll be sure to reach out to you. Today, we are joined by the amazing Brian Tam. I want to do a little bit of an introduction. I think it's best from you, Brian, but I'd say creativity consultant, business owner, TEDx speaker, author I can put in there as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Brian, can you first, where are you calling us from today?
Today I'm in Lisbon, where I'm based out of now. We moved here 3.5 years ago from Shanghai, where we met, of course.
Yeah.
And loving it here, man. It's a beautiful
Yeah,
place.
real. And the weather's nice today, I imagine.
Not right now. The
Oh,
morning
really?
gets a little cloudy before the sky heats up, and then the clouds kind of fade away. So
Wow. Okay. I just feel like it should always be sunny in Portugal, but I guess sometimes not, right?
mostly.
Yeah. Well, I suppose to start us off, Brian, could you just, for those listeners that don't know you, could you just run us through your kind of your journey, how you've got from where you started to now? Because I believe it's been quite a journey.
Oof. Yeah, I could do the quick version of this because that story can go on forever, of course. Um, the super simple story is like I'm American, born in New York, raised in New Jersey, went to school in University of Maryland, studied business because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, like a normal 20 something year old. And that was back in 2000s, like early 2000s. 9/11 happened, my first week of school, and the world was changing, obviously. And it started to become a very, very international place. Like growing up in New Jersey, we're like in this isolated experience, right? And then
Mm.
realizing like, oh, there's a lot of things going on. I mean, that's the point of university, I guess. So started to see the world was changing and become more global. And I was curious about China. I'm ethnically Chinese, but my parents are from Hong Kong, and I didn't really have anything to do with China growing up. It's just like this. I imagine somewhat similar experience for most people, like an exotic place that you heard about long, like really far away, like
Yeah.
um, kind of maybe backwards or whatever, like it's been demonized. And uh, around 2006 and 7, they were talking about how China was like pirating everything, right? And everything
Mm.
was fake and coming from China. And I was like, how could that be the case? Like such an enormous country, how can they, how can that be the case that there's no creativity, innovation there? So I was curious about that, and I decided to go there. In 2007, worked as an English teacher for a little while before I went back into marketing, and then soon after that, started my own company, and that company is around creativity, innovation, which is my passion and interest. And it blended some of my experience as a business consultant and as a marketing person and as a teacher facilitator. It really became what I'm doing now, which is Let's Make Great, the name of my company, a creative consultancy. I also call myself a thinking partner now for founders, which means, as an individual business owner, there's a lot to think about, a lot to work through, and it's not always easy to make sense of it, and not always easy to have like fresh ideas, right? So my job is to help people to clarify their ideas, give them new ones, point out blind spots, think about the strategy, think about the pricing models, think about their branding, positioning, all these kind of like big abstract stuff.
Mm.
And I pivoted away from the pure creative consulting, which I did with multinationals, to start working with founders since the pandemic. So,
Mm. And what I find fascinating with what you do, Brian, is as well. I mean, you have worked with very big companies, very diverse companies, right? Big and small, focusing now on the founders. But from being in China to being in Portugal, Lisbon, still, in an international type city, right? You've been in contact with lots of different people from different cultural backgrounds, right? And you mentioned your own background, right? I mean,
right.
we all come with different stories, right? but especially in international cities, we've got groups of many different nationalities, many different cultures mixed together. I'm just kind of wondering from your work, from your experience, has that changed the way that you approach business leaders? If you see that they've got a particular cultural identity, nationality, ethnicity, does that change the way that you kind of approach them and deal with their creativity problem or the roadblock that they're facing?
Yeah, I think I tend to approach, I try to and tend to approach people from a very basic meet them where they are approach, right? So they, I, I don't want to think of their culture as the filter almost, but through working with them and talking to them, and working with others from maybe a similar culture, similar country, I start to abstract out the patterns and similarities. But I never go into it thinking like, oh, this is a British person. I should be very whatever indirect or whatever in speaking to them, right? I try to be who I am, and that's a very I think an American approach. But I try to be who I am, and I try to meet them where they are, and that allows me to hopefully create common ground so that there's eliminating a lot of how should we say it eliminates some of the cultural layer, I think. I try to because it's already hard enough, it's already confusing, and I think a lot of people are starting to get used to working in international contexts, so there's almost like the international norms that we're
Mm,
playing with,
mm.
and we'll always have our background and history, but I try to let that be the interesting parts rather than the core,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
quirks, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, for sure, like every country has its kind of stereotypes and norms, and you feel the differences.
Mm,
But also the interesting thing is like working with individuals, founders. Founders are very unique characters within their own culture. They are the ones that think differently already. So
mm,
to like pigeonhole them or stereotype them in such a cultural way, I think
mm.
that would that it creates some distance, and
Yeah,
most of the
yeah,
time people don't appreciate that, or at least um, if you meet them as a founder, like, yeah, I love that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's who I am. That identity is much stronger.
I imagine that's where you see the big difference. And yeah, I mean, we spoke off air, and I I told you my experience working with different cultures, different nationalities, and the kind of stereotypes that I've kind of put in my head. But at the same time, it's very important that we always put those to one side, right? People are people, right?
Mm,
But a
absolutely.
founder is a very different person to an employee, right? I guess what is the mindset of a founder as you're working with them? How do they think?
What I find is that it seems kind of obvious, right? But it it is what I find is that they are very independent. They are very creative. They may be slightly technical. And they're highly curious. Like they just love absorbing new information, and they are, I think, self-learners a lot of times, independent learners.
Mm,
Uh, and there is obviously, again, like this sounds obvious, there is a slight bit more business interest. Um,
mm,
there are some who are approaching it as like from a lifestyle perspective, out of convenience, like this fits their lifestyle a little bit better. But there are a lot of others, like there's some balance between lifestyle and making sure it does make some sense, right? Like
mm,
financial sense. Um,
mm,
whether or not, but they also tend to be generalists. Like they came from one industry and they're going into another industry, or they don't, they studied something very, very general and they're just kind of uh, trying to find their way, right?
mm,
So there's a lot of um, because of these characteristics, there creates a lot of side effects, let's call them, right? Being independently minded means sometimes you're stubborn, sometimes you're closed off to other opinions, right? A self-learner might mean that, or somebody coming from one industry to another industry and being a self-learner, you might have imposter syndrome. You may not feel like you might feel like vulnerable as you enter into a new profession, into a new area, because you're often working again independently and alone. you don't have anyone to talk to, and then you
Yeah.
kind of get siloed, and you can overthink. The other thing with creativity, you overthink, right? So
Mm.
there's like a yin and yang almost, or a positive and negative to everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess if a founder, if a business owner has already reached out to you, reached out to your team, they've made that first step, right? So they know that they're dealing with some kind of roadblock. There's something maybe not quite right, but something that they want to overcome, right? So they've already made that first step in reaching out to you. Um, you kind of touched upon it there. What's the kind of the difficulty, the pattern that you see founders going through that's kind of stopping them from progressing their business or stopping them from overcoming whatever issue that they're dealing with?
So it's a blend, right? They What I find is that everyone is saying they want one thing objectively, right?
Mm,
But in practice, the founders that I work with, they also are multiple years into the project, into their
mm,
business, and so they've developed some patterns and ways of thinking. And again, they're often working alone. They're like, at least they may have a co-founder, but the co-founder is really not an equal co-founder, right? It's not like they didn't start it's a different relationship, let's say. And so they're very, very strong minded, and they end up overthinking, they end up falling into these blind spots and thinking patterns where they just repeat over time. And they don't really know why. So my job in the first couple consultations is to help them figure that out, build that awareness, point to different things that may be the issue, and hopefully try to find a more deeper root cause within them. It's usually some mix between mindset and then technical capability and then strategy, right? So it's not like I think some consultants just work on strategy. Some trainers just work on capability, and some coaches just work on mindset. And I think that doesn't really work in creating a holistic long-term change. So I would like to go through that whole process because, again, I'm a business operator. I've built my own businesses, uh, and and I am a marketer, and I am a facilitator, and I am a coach. So I try to blend all these disciplines and skills together so that I can help them along the journey and making hopefully a deeper change. I hope
yeah.
this doesn't come off like sounding too salesy, you know? I'm just
No,
thinking about
no.
that now.
Absolutely, absolutely not. I mean, I think a lot of people listening in, they are business owners,
Yeah.
but they're aiming to push their company forward. I think what you said there about mindset, that's something that when when you're a business owner, you're exactly self-learning, self-developing, but often the mindset, people will maybe have a particular mindset, but they're not aware of their mindset. And I guess that's kind of what you go into is that
Yeah.
does there need to be a mindset shift here? Am I regularly kind of looking at myself in the right way? How has my mindset changed in the past 2 weeks? I mean, what kind of common things do you see happening with people in terms of the mindset and how that kind of stops people?
I think we all want to play bigger, grow bigger, and there's a lot of fear associated with that, right? There's a
Mm,
lot of small thinking or limiting beliefs or things that we were taught as children or by society that says no, you shouldn't. And so, I, and that's really hard to uncover. And so, I work with people that I have a really good relationship with, thankfully. Like they're often my friends first. Um, and and that allows us to have like an even deeper conversation. So there must be trust. If there's no trust, if you don't trust me, then that's fine. Like go work with somebody else, right? That you
yeah.
actually do trust. Because like that is such a required element in uncovering this vulnerable side of your thinking pattern, right? You have to be open. If you're not open, then I can't help you, right?
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so that's a major, major, major factor in trying to hone in on what we can do together.
Yeah, you mentioned as well the strategies and the ways that you work with founders. So I'll bring down because I still have this from when we personally met. Proto is one such kind of tool that you use with individuals, but also with teams, right? Um, You can maybe explain what proto is, but my deeper question is: do these kinds of tools, do they just scratch the surface, or do they actually allow us to go deep into the issue that's stopping us from growing? What's your kind of like perspective on tools and how we use them?
Yeah, I think Proto is a card game that we developed because we were consultants, and we a lot of times customers or companies were, and I'm sure even some of the listeners now are listening, like, what are you talking about? So I think when you talk about creativity, when you talk about entrepreneurship, when you talk about consulting, these are all very vague, abstract concepts. So
Mhm.
we decided, how do we make that as tangible as possible? So we
Yeah.
created this card game, and then we launched a Kickstarter. It took 2.5 years, and we were able to raise some money and produce this game. So yeah, we use it as a workshop tool, and oftentimes we use it as an introductory tool or as a light kind of experience for people to feel what it means to be a founder, feel what it means to build a startup, and that's the point of the game. It's a storytelling game. It's all that. And so yeah, it is, this one in particular is designed to be an introductory tool. It is not like a foundational, like changing, life changing tool. Although it
Mm.
has, a lot of people have played the game and then realized, oh, this is the company I want to build. This is
Mm.
it. So that's kind of cool.
Mm.
My opinion on tools, going back to your core question there, is yeah, tools are tools. I think they're wonderful. We all need to have a set of tools at our disposal, but the ultimate tool is your knowledge and your ability to develop a relationship and uh, point out things
Yeah.
and hopefully communicate that in a way that others can understand and then internalize as they are starting to change, right?
Mm.
So because again, like all these things are so abstract and so personal. We're talking about we're almost talking about like, you open Oxford Dictionary or Webster's Dictionary, whatever, right? You have the standard definition, and that's the one society you might use. But we have our individual definitions, and that individual definition is like a constellation within our head. And so my job is to first like identify that constellation, and then try to point it out to them, and then hopefully they can understand it too, and then we can change some of these stars or points or lines, as it were, so that they can create a new constellation within their own head, and um, that's an example of how that's the point, trying to communicate that, trying to figure out each other's definitions so that we can rework it at a internal and fundamental level first, mindset. Then we talk about um, capability, like developing the skills and practicing. Like, for example, if we're talking about communicating your brand and pitching your company, well, first we want to make sure that you feel confident in what that is. You want to make sure that it's clear what that is and have all that mindset stuff. And then we want to practice it and make sure that you feel uh, that you say it in a convincing way. And then
Yeah.
finally, we figure out how do we present that and get that pitch out to as many investors as possible, right?
Mm.
So that's what I mean by
Yeah.
like this multi-layered process.
Yeah. And, yeah,
There's no
that's a
single
beautiful way
tool.
to explain as well, like realigning the constellations. I guess with that, do you get a lot of pushback from founders, or speaking to founders on this call, um, that maybe want quick results? I
Mm.
guess you get that probably fairly often. Maybe founders want quick results, but the transformation is a long term project. I mean, how do you balance that off?
I used to earlier on when I wasn't sure what I was trying to do and I wasn't sure what I was able to do.
Mm.
And I might take a project here and there and deal with that and try to help them with that. But nowadays, I don't get such founders because I filter them out, right?
Yeah.
Firstly, all my material is marketing material, social media, branding, website, everything is around long-term, sustainable, foundational growth, right?
Mm.
And And so therefore they see that and they're like, oh, this is not this is not what I'm looking for, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then even if they somehow miss that as they go through the process, I have some other filtering tools that I'm looking at as they go into my website and as they before they start really engaging with me and before we start working together. And
Mm,
so that includes a diagnostic survey, and then that includes a follow-up interview, and then and even then there's a proposal process where I might say, all right, this is what we might do together. Does that make sense? And then
mm.
so at that whole time, if they for some reason think like, yeah, I need quick results from this, they they should have filtered themselves out by that point.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a lesson for every kind of business owner as well, isn't it? Is like not wasting time on the wrong people, right? Because every result you get, every case study you get, um, that should be building you as a business owner, right? So you should be with the right people, not the wrong people, and getting to the right people as well. It's that trust. Last week we had Lawrence on, and his message was people by people, right? So you can't, yeah, the relationship stage, you can't skip that, right? You've got to have that trust between you, and you've got to have the right match in the first place, haven't you? I, the interesting kind of thought for me is in the sort of creativity space, the problem solving space. Obviously, AI is here, right? So people are using AI in some form or another. Typically, Chat GPT. People are figuring out ways to utilize AI. But when it comes to creativity, how do you see it as creativity is a human trait? AI is pushing into it. We see all of the pictures, being created. The video content is just spamming Facebook at the minute, right? How do you think businesses should be cautious, but also maybe welcoming and adopting of AI? Where do you stand in the kind of creativity space?
It's an amazing question. I think there's so much that's happening right now. I think even my answer now will not be relevant in a year's time. And so I think
Yeah.
that's an important caveat to make because as we're going through this experience, um, the most important thing that we can be doing is experimenting and figuring out what does work. I think it's very easy for us to demonize creativity or AI as this new thing. Um, but at the same time, we should be embracing it. So, or at least be curious about it. And if you don't even have that curiosity, well, I guess you won't even be listening to this. But so let's assume that you have that curiosity, and let's assume that you realize that AI is going to transform your business. Um, I you know For me, this is a very deep question because I've spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time cultivating my own creativity and understanding what creativity means. I mean, that's what earlier you said. You talked about my book, and that's what my book is about. It's called Original Creativity, and now there's this question of um, uh, is that element being replaced
Mm.
in our human psyche? I think for some people it can replace or augment, and I think that's certainly going to help a lot of people, and I think it's really worth investigating. And even when you talk about AI, it's such a general technology. Nowadays, we barely use the word internet because it's everything, it's everywhere, right?
Mm.
And so in the same way, AI is going to be right, everything everywhere. How we it almost won't make sense to talk about AI in a year's time or 2 years, several years time. So yes, it can help. Obviously, I am using it. I think there are. I'm hesitating now, right? And you can leave this all in, but I'm hesitating because I don't. I think the most important thing is experimenting with it and seeing what will come out because there it is so unique as a tool. It's like glue. Like you
Mm.
can use glue in a variety of different ways.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about glue? It sticks. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, but like, yeah, you can use it. It's in everything. It's in your clothing. It's in your books, it's in the wallpaper, it's, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
it's in your
It's where
furniture.
AI is heading. It's going into everything, every element of our lives, right?
Yeah.
That whether
And
we like it or not, it's there, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe I should push back on the question. Like, what what are you what are you trying to get at, right?
Mm. Well, I guess as you know, someone working with companies as a creativity consultant, right? Is there a danger that you get replaced by all of these AI tools, or
As a
is that not
consultant?
possible? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's certainly going to happen within the next couple of years, and that needs to be considered on the individual level as a
mm,
founder, right? Um, there's no reason to be the taxi driver or truck driver in the age of robot drivers or driverless
yeah,
cars, right?
yeah,
Or it doesn't make sense to be a farmhand when all of a sudden there's industrialization of farming and plows that are
yeah,
massive in scale, right?
mm,
Um, so I think yeah, there's so many examples, and somehow I think we are the more aware generation.
mm,
We should be, at least, having been somewhat educated and having been in this place of hyper communication and access to information and news. Um, like, don't tell me by now in 20, this is the second half of 2025, you still don't know that it's coming for you,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? In
yeah,
some capacity. So
yeah,
this is a big existential question that I'm discussing with a lot of my peers and clients. How do you see, first of all, how do you see the world with
mm,
AI um, playing a role? And depends on, what role it's going to play. But um, and then within that, how do you want to live and work,
mm,
right? That needs to be foundational, um,
mm,
because it's a question of personal. For me, entrepreneurship is a question of self-identity. Like, you get to build a business that makes your identity, that makes you, um, allows you to put all your ideas into something. All your values, all your beliefs are put into this vehicle,
mm,
uniquely yours, right?
yeah, yeah,
So that's a very beautiful experience. However, it's also an existential one. It's also a philosophical one,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that requires you to know who you are. And and as the world is changing now, your answers are probably going to have to change.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I've likened AI as tools, so like house building. So you could think of ChatGPT as a hammer, right? And you can't just use a hammer to build a house. You've got to have a whole host of tools, right, to build a house. That's all of the AI tools that are available. So you put them all together and you know how to yeah, interact with different ones, which ones are doing what specific role, then you can build the house, right? If we think of tools of past, I believe people could build, say, a typical stone house, right? But now the tools are way more developed. If you know how to use all of the tools, interlink them, know what exactly that they can do, you can build a mansion, right? But the expectation in 5 years' time is, well, you don't want a wooden, shed from the 1980s. That's way old. Brick house, that's so 1990s, early zeros. You should be building this mansion, right? It's like the expectation of what everyone else is doing. I think you're absolutely right.
Mm.
It's you're going to have to, because there is no way back.
Mm.
We've passed that already. Um, I guess that leads quite nicely, Brian. So, I mean, with yourself, with Let's Make Great, what is your plans going forward?
Mm.
Sort of over the next kind of 5 years or so.
Yeah, I right now I just started teaching at a university here, and so that's been a lot of fun, and I think I will continue that for a little bit. Um, but with my own business, yeah, I'm exploring different paths, different startups. So,
Mm,
so I have the teaching position. I have my full time as Let's Make Great, and then exploring other startups that I want to build. Right. I
mm,
think
mm,
now is the time to be building very amazing new tools and micro startups, as some might call them.
Yeah.
And and I'm trying to find, and because AI is so enabling, then it becomes, all that much easier. But at the same time, because uh, I, I don't know if this is old or young, but I feel a little traditional at least. So I'm about 41, 42, and I find it still, I have some hesitancy with AI. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners can relate to that. Like, yeah, I'm curious, but I could be doing more, right? And having lived through the dot-com boom
Yeah.
and bust, you just realize like, yeah, we're at the precipice of something, so we should be a part of it.
Mm.
Um, but there's mixed emotions of like wanting to be a part of it, but also not wanting to be left behind, and
Yeah.
things being unique, changing so quickly that you feel like, hey, um, I gotta move fast, and that
Yeah.
only adds to the anxiety behind it, right? Um,
Mm.
but thankfully, because of these tools and the user experience on a lot of them are pretty friendly. Um, I think there's a lot that can be done.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a very interesting time. I think there's a greater divide coming, and so it's better to be on the right side,
Yeah.
the curious side of learning and adapting. And I think
Mm.
as long as we have that, then we'll, I think that's about as best we can do. Try
Yeah.
as hard as we can to leverage this inflection point,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Brian. If listeners want to reach out to you, get in touch, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, at Let's Make Great, all one word. Let's Make Great. GREAT. Just making sure. Um, yeah,
I'll
and
put those contact
everywhere.
details below in the notes so they
Instagram.
can.
Thank you. LinkedIn, Instagram, X, or whatever they called it.
Yeah, yeah,
But I don't use X, so actually just LinkedIn and Instagram is best. And then .com, let'smakeGreat.com.
yeah. Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, I'll put all those contact details below. But thank you very much, Brian, for joining us today, and thank you everyone for listening.